patients. So just to reiterate, I took UW Dentistry and I took bamboo toothbrushes. I introduced the two with the goal to reduce plastic waste. So a little bit about me and my journey here. I personally believe that we're all dedicated, or we all have the privilege to be dedicated to our own specific passions. I'm a future environmentalist myself, but I don't think that everybody has to be. So that being said, I do think that we should be aware that our personal actions do add up to have an environmental impact, even if you're not an environmentalist yourself. And that led me to my passion for holding businesses responsible for using the power that they have and the impact they have on the environment for good, and for creating change that will hopefully trickle down to the consumer. Okay, that leads me to my problem statement, which is based on the fact that an estimated 50 million pounds of plastic toothbrushes enter landfills each year, and that's in the USA alone. That's about 2,500 elephants, to give you a rough estimate. So my project aims to reduce that number through bamboo introducing a more environmentally sustainable option, bamboo toothbrushes, to UW Dentistry. Again, my solution looks like this. So this is a bamboo toothbrush. The handle is completely made out of bamboo, so it's compostable and biodegradable. The bristles are made out of nylon. They do have to be removed before the handle can be composted. So it's not 100% perfect, but it's about a 95% reduction in plastic waste, so definitely a step in the right direction. So I researched a lot of topics to make sure that this project was legitimate. The first thing I studied was triple bottom line sustainability. And triple bottom line sustainability equally prioritizes economic growth, social impact, and environmental impact. So businesses can use triple bottom line sustainability to hold themselves accountable for a more holistic approach. Next, I studied eco-friendly dentistry, which is a concept that kind of already exists in the dentistry world. So this is a resource that dentists can use to find ways to be more sustainable and lessen their negative environmental impact. And lastly, I researched corporate social responsibility, which is a concept that businesses can use to use their power for good instead of just making a profit. I also researched the problems with plastic and the benefits of bamboo. So first of all, plastic is made from oil, which is not a sustainable resource. Factories that produce plastic are releasing greenhouse gases into our atmosphere, which is also not sustainable. Plastic does not break down in our environment because there's nothing natural that will break it down. And plastic is often mistaken as food by animals that when they eat it can feel really uncomfortable and die. Plastic, if disposed of properly, can end up in a landfill, and landfills are bad for our environment because they release methane into our atmosphere. Also, if plastic is not disposed of properly, an estimated 8 million tons of it end up in our oceans every single year. So the benefits of bamboo: it's naturally occurring, it can grow outside because it's a plant. It also naturally biodegrades. The bamboo that's used for the toothbrushes on the market only need rainwater, so they're not using any extra resource in order to grow. Also, the same type of bamboo is not the type of bamboo that pandas eat, so it's not taking a resource away from animals either. Also, bamboo rejuvenates itself in 2 years, making it the most sustainable plant. And lastly, if it ends up somewhere where it's not supposed to be, it's non-toxic. Okay, so I took a lot of steps in order to make sure that my project was a success. The first thing I did was send out a survey to gauge the general interest of bamboo toothbrushes with the public. I sent this survey to a lot of my Seattle friends, and I also sent it to a lot of my study abroad friends in Morocco in order to attempt to diversify the data pool. So first I asked, if you were given a free bamboo toothbrush from your dentist, would you use it? And out of 180 responses, 91% of people said yes. The second thing I asked was, when supporting a business, does sustainability matter to you? Again, out of 180 responses, 89% of people said yes. So I was really excited to have this data, and I took it to my first meeting with UW Dentistry, where I met with Dr. Schwedhelm, the Associate Dean of Clinics. I brought my project proposal, and I said that I'm proposing a pilot program to hand out bamboo toothbrushes to UW Dentistry patients. It was that at that time, it was his idea to pair my pilot program with Profi Clinic. And Profi Clinic is when second-year dentistry students give cleanings to the general public of Seattle. So he thought it was a good idea to to pair my pilot program with Profi Clinic for spring quarter. So moving forward, when I got the good news, I applied for my first grant. I applied through the CEP Community Support Grant, who awarded me $500. I also applied to the Campus Sustainability Fund, who awarded me $900 for this project. Once I had my money, I ordered everything, and this is the final product. So this is all the ingredients of the goodie bag. I have a commercially compostable bag, the bamboo toothbrush, an all-natural toothpaste, and a compostable floss made out of silk. I also made a diagram explaining the environmental impact of each item, including a feedback survey. So now I'm going to break down a little bit more in what was the goodie bag. So there's about 5 companies right now on the market selling bamboo toothbrushes, but I chose this one called Senza Bamboo. I chose them because they're a Seattle-based company and buying local is more sustainable. They again use that bamboo that pandas do not eat, even though I know their logo is a little misleading. They also have completely plastic-free packaging, so even this part here that looks like plastic is actually commercially compostable. And they donate 3% of their profits to Mary's Place, which is a local women's shelter downtown, so they have a social mission as well. So they provided the toothbrushes and the compostable floss made of silk. Then I reached out to toothpaste companies. I chose this one, Uncle Harry's, because they're a Seattle-based company as well. Their product comes in a glass jar. They're a family company, and they use biodegradable ingredients. And lastly, they agreed to donate 250 of the samples to my goodie bags for free. I do have to say that this toothpaste did end up being very controversial with UW Dentistry. They were really concerned about the lack of fluoride in the toothpaste, and they're also really concerned about how abrasive the salt was on the teeth. Also, people thought it was gross. And lastly, everything was packaged in this commercially compostable bag from a company called Clear Bags in California. So once everything that I ordered arrived, I hosted this community volunteer event. This event was really special to my project because a lot of my peers came together around a topic I'm passionate about, sustainability. So in about 2 hours, we assembled 250 goodie bags. It was a lot of fun, and I made snacks too. So about a week before my project was supposed to launch with Profi Clinic, Dr. Schwedhelm told me that I should be in contact with Dr. Daubert, the clinical associate professor. So I reached out to her and learned that she should have been the person I was in contact with this entire time. So after much deliberation, we decided that it would be better if I hand these goodie bags out to UW Dentistry students and faculty so that we could get informed and professional feedback instead of just going straight to patients. So after this decision, I did about 2 to 3 class presentations to UW Dentistry students, and I also presented to a group of faculty. I handed out my goodie bags there and told them the environmental breakdown of each of the items, and I explained my project and asked them to please fill out my survey. Okay, so on to my survey results. Unfortunately, only 11 people responded to my survey, which is already probably indicative of how much they're not thinking about sustainability down at UW Dentistry. But regardless, I asked, how satisfied are you with the bamboo toothbrush? It's pretty clear that most people are feeling neutral and negative about the concept of a new toothbrush in the healthcare system. I also asked, what have you learned through your current dentistry curriculum about sustainability and dentistry? As you can see from these responses, most people said they have not learned much at all about sustainability in their curriculum. I asked, what do you think are the barriers for UW Dentistry to switch from handing out plastic toothbrushes to bamboo ones? I got a variety of responses here, but the main concerns were the cost and the quality of the bristles, which turned out to be the same quality as the ones we're already using. And lastly, I asked, would you like UW Dentistry to consider environmental sustainability in addition to the health and safety of patients? And luckily, 90% of people said yes. So I think that bamboo toothbrushes was a really concrete way to introduce this idea. So, based on other data that I got from my survey too, Dr. Daubert and I decided that for the order that we're making for patients, that we should order the ultra soft bristle version. So we made that order on Monday. So now my next steps are to determine the guidelines for success for this toothbrush. UW Dentistry does things a little bit differently. At the end of your appointment at UW Dentistry, the dentists have access to a wide variety of items where they can choose which item to recommend to you based on all of your qualities as a patient. So I need to figure out what qualities as a patient would make the UW Dentistry dentist choose to give you the bamboo one. After that, I also need to write up a comprehensive plan for the club eco reps as well, so that I can pass this on to be followed through in the future. I also learned a lot throughout this project. Some of my challenges started with how strong my environmental bias and lens was going into this. I didn't even think about bristles being a concern, whereas that was their main concern because they are prioritizing patient safety while I was prioritizing environmental impact. Also, that shift with the UW Dentistry decision maker in the middle of my project was quite a shock, but I really do think it turned out to be for the better. I learned a lot as well. I learned how to write grants, and I also learned how to communicate my ideas to people that are not as similarly minded as me. And I learned the complete A to Z process from having an idea of implementing sustainability to the implementation phase. I also want to thank a lot of people. I want to thank CEP for the support and the grant as well. Also the Campus Sustainability Fund for the grant. Eco Reps, they supported me a lot through this project. And UW Sustainability, because I always ran in there like really flustered and they were always really nice. On the UW Dentistry end, I would like to thank Dr. Daubert because she really didn't have to keep working with me and she chose to anyway. UW Dentistry in general for accepting this idea. Brett Trentham, who's the owner of the company that provided the toothbrushes and the floss, and Dr. Schwedhelm, the Associate Dean of Clinics, who originally gave me the green light for this project. And I would just like to remind everyone that although it may not feel like it, your small actions really do add up to make a difference. And one small change, such as changing what toothbrush you use, can make a world of a difference. And in conclusion, to avoid something as detrimental as this, you can implement something as simple as this. Thank you, and do you have any questions? Yes.
Super fast question. Can you go back one? Because I want to get a picture of the avoid this.
Okay. Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
It's a great photo.
Yeah, it's not mine. I didn't put it.
Cool, got it.
Okay, so my question for you is, did you think about sort of the impact of compostable toothbrushes in the greater infrastructure sense? Like if a city doesn't have compost capability or, you know, ways to process the toothbrushes, did you think about that as you were going about the project?
Yeah, I did, and that's why I was so excited for it, because I was thinking, another question I asked in my original survey was, do you use your Seattle compost bin? But it was really skewed because I sent that to lots of people that don't live in Seattle, so all the people that said no, I thought they were ruining my day, that's why I didn't use it. But I thought this project was perfect for Seattle specifically because we're all technically required to have compost bins. But yeah, I don't know if it's super better for cities that don't have compost bins, but I think on the production end, it's still more sustainable, even if on the other end, it can't be composted commercially. Yeah.
I've got a few questions.
Okay.
That's a really fun project. I think it's a really cool thing to be exploring.
Thank you.
So kind of along Hannah's question, did you check on the compostability of those items directly with the processors who will be dealing with those? I think one thing, you know, we all encounter in the world is a lot of stuff that looks, that says it's green, that says it's biodegradable, that says compostable, but you know, making sure that an item really, when it gets to the place here where it will be processed, that is appropriate for their systems. Is that something that you looked into?
I did have concern a little bit because people, I think it was even UW Recycling, was saying that you can't put things that have touched your mouth into the compost, but that's like all of our cutlery, so I don't think that that's super accurate. But I think the main concern is actually removing the bristles before you compost it.
Yeah.
But I didn't actually like officially check with like Cedar Grove or anything, but that would be a good idea to do.
That's kind of the world I work in, and
Yeah.
one thing would be connecting directly with Cedar Grove or Lens Composting and saying, these are the exact products I'm telling people to put in the compost.
Okay.
Is this fine?
Yeah, okay.
And then along those same lines, for your little goodie bag, did you provide instructions of like, what do you do with these things when you're done?
Yes.
Like how to dispose or telling people to remove the bristles or what?
Yeah, I did kind of explain, oh, it's really blurry, darn. Yeah, so the also I have goodie bags for everyone at the today, so you can just go on your way out. But I did explain that the bristles will need to be removed, and that everything else is compostable.
Have you tried removing the?
Yeah, how do you do
Yeah.
that?
I haven't. Apparently you have to use pliers, or if you're really strong, you can snap the head off, but I tried it and it's pretty hard. Yeah.
So that would probably be good detail to include, like, not just remove the bristles, but here's how you're gonna need to do it. 'Cause it sounds like
Definitely.
it's slightly complicated.
Yeah.
And then the same thing kind of like with the bag, that looks like plastic bag to me,
Mhm.
there's no markings on it, so, you know, encouraging if they were to roll something like this out, broad scale, if you kept ordering from that producer to say, hey, we need this to be marked.
Yeah.
So people know what to do with it.
That's a really good point. Yeah, a lot of people just think it's plastic. I do write that the bag is compostable on the flyer, but yeah, it would be helpful if you saw it out of context, you could still know.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously for a pilot, it's hard to kind of have it exactly how you might want it, but that might be a good thing to think about if you're recommending a broader rollout is like, what would I recommend kind of this perfect package to look like?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Sounds like we have an advisor. We plan to continue the project.
Yeah.
Advisors.
I think that would be helpful.
So maybe I missed this, but you started talking about plastics pollution and obviously how terrible that is, and then you hyper-focused on toothbrushes. How'd you pick toothbrushes? And, sorry, two-part
yeah.
question. And is there any other similar sort of really unique item that you could do a similar behavior change sort of project like this?
Ooh, yeah, that's like my favorite topic. Okay, so first I picked toothbrushes, and then I learned those facts about plastic. So last year I took a class called Attaining a Sustainable Society, and for that class we had to come up with an end project, and my group and I came up with this idea, and we just kind of like made a silly video and didn't really pursue it. And then when like Senior Project came around, I was like, oh, that was actually such a good idea, and I was just really excited about pursuing it because it's so small yet like so impactful. Thank you. I don't know, does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. And other small changes, I think that people could focus on razors. Plastic razors are also really contributing a lot, and they make easy metal razors that you could change as well. I think there's a lot more I could say, but I only have 5 minutes, so yeah. Lots of little stuff that adds up. Yeah.
So, you faced a ton of obstacles in this project.
I really
Like,
did.
From day one.
Yes.
Until like almost the last day.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for students that, because you could have given up on this thing many times.
Oh, thank you for acknowledging that. Yeah, advice for students on how not to give up.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Pick something you love, because even though this was like the most intense emotional roller coaster I've ever been on, and wow, I think like I loved that I was engaged, because class can be boring, but like this was painful so many times, but like also invigorating. I was like, I was so determined. So yeah, if you love it, I think the roller coaster is worth it.
I think along those same lines, you mentioned having learned how to communicate ideas with different groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess what does that look like for you now? Like, you enter into a room, are you doing research on like, okay, who are these people? What language are they gonna be like thinking about, whether it's economic or whatnot? Like, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I could ask more questions about how they think and feel, and also stay confident in myself, because my biggest problem was that I felt like such an annoying burden to them the whole time, and I was like, please stay with me. So yeah, maybe finding the balance between like being confident, but not feeling pushy, and explaining that this is important, but not overwhelming people and making them retreat once I'm like, here's all the information. But that's a really hard balance to find. Yeah.
It's so important to influence children. I wonder if you reached out to the Tooth Fairy to see if you could make that connection early in life.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay.
Don't does. You mentioned that that obstacle you faced right at the end, where you realized the real person you should have been asking all along. You got past that, but you said you're actually happy that it happened that way.
Mhm.
Why do you think that is? You know, in the end, it turned out the right kind of path to do.
Yeah, honestly, probably just cause like since I did, what she wanted me to do, then she was like more willing to
Yeah.
work with me, cause I was pretty much just at her mercy at that point. So, and I also think that the problem, well, she was supposed to come today, but she failed, but that's okay. I think the problem was that like she wanted to know that she had control, because it turned out that I just ran to her office and I was like, here's my project. Like I had no idea that she didn't know, and I think she felt like really undermined in her authority.
Yeah.
So the more I catered to her and the more I gave her power, I think the more willing she was to work with me in the end, once she realized that I'm not gonna force her to do anything, but I really want her to be on board.
Yeah, great.
So I think it worked out because eventually she was just like, okay, fine, let's just do it. And
Yeah.
she was excited, yeah. And she also, like during my presentations, was like, you know, this is a really important issue. Like when she talked about it to her students, she was advocating on my behalf, which I found out also to be really interesting, because it just showed how much she needed to feel like she had a stake in this project, and it
She
wasn't
bought
just
in.
being thrown at her.
Yeah.
Sorry?
She bought into your
Exactly.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Like you gave her control.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Go for it.
I was kind of curious because you brought up the point that you had to kind of cater to her in a certain way, or you have to cater to your audience. Do you think, thinking about sustainability, is there a way to make compromises but not lose sight of your goal? And like, how did you balance that? I mean, I feel like that's very hard, like especially with the toothpaste. Like, you know, it doesn't taste great, but it's good for the environment. It's
Right.
like, do you have any advice on like how to find that balance between
Yeah.
utopia and reality?
Definitely. I know I always want to challenge people to like look at what our convenient society has brought us, and to maybe help people think like you can sacrifice a couple conveniences, like maximum flavor, you can knock off 10 points and you'll be okay. Like it's not that yummy, but it's worth it. And I want people to realize that I think it's always worth it to make those sacrifices for convenience and comfort, and to just try harder to choose what you know is better for everyone. But I think people are really resistant to that idea in general. Yeah.
One thing we did with a group of kids was we had them make their own toothpaste.
Ooh.
And it was super fun because they were just, it tasted awful, but they were so excited about it that they were like, we're gonna go home, we're gonna use it, mom and dad are gonna use it, like, they loved it. And I've actually followed up with a few folks from that workshop, and they were like, yeah, we still make toothpaste,
Oh, that's
and it's like a part of
awesome.
our like family bonding now. And
Yeah.
so, I don't know, making it fun and interactive too.
Right,
is-
and then you have
is-
that like autonomy over yourself and your
Yeah.
products.
Yeah.
That's a really good example. Yeah.
I think just in answering your question there, you make some good points about kind of what it's like in the real world when we want to help people achieve behavior change. And we
Yeah.
want, and in our world, like, oh, we can get them all the way over here and this would be perfect. And it sounds like maybe you had some good learnings of like, well, maybe this isn't gonna be the exact goodie bag they're gonna adopt, but if they can get here, if I can work with you and get you to this point and you replace this one item, that could be successful.
Right.
And that's good enough, and it doesn't have to be a complete overhaul. So I think it sounds like you had some good learnings around like,
Yeah.
in my dream environmental world, I would do this, but maybe it's okay to do this
Exactly,
instead.
yeah. My project goals shifted from like them switching to bamboo toothbrushes to just including it in the option of things they could hand out. And even that I felt was like such a big step, because at first they were like, what? Right, yeah. Yes.
You mentioned people had concerns about the quality of the bristles, but then as you were moving between slides, you said it turns out they're just as good as regular bristles. How'd you find that out?
So it was just like a really silly communication, because UW Dentistry kept saying I need to know the diameter and the stiffness. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? I don't understand. And then, but really they just wanted to know if they were soft or ultra soft or medium or hard. But they were using these technical terms that I didn't understand, and I made it such a big deal. And I asked Brett 50 million times for like all these intense scientific articles, and eventually I was like, I just said casually like, oh, these are soft or these are ultra soft. She was like, oh, that's all I need to know. I was like, what? Oh, okay. And then she was like, we want ultra soft ones. And then I think that just once she knew the distributor of the bristles, she knew it was a familiar brand as well. Okay, yeah, sorry, we're out of time. Okay, thank you.